Evening, it's August 2nd, 2021. This is the Zoning Board of Appeals. I'd like to open the meeting with the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Oh,
Good, thank you. Okay, welcome to the Zoning Board of Appeals. I see our three applicants are here. I see you're doing this with your ear, Mr. Rotesh. If there any reason, if you can't hear any one of us, just hold on. I'm just going to give some preliminary ground rules first. So everyone's going to be given an opportunity to make their presentation. And after you're done making the presentation, the board will probably ask you some questions. Matt Nairpass is up there. He's on the board. He's attending via Zoom. If there are any exhibits that you want us to look at, please refer to the photograph. And when you refer to the photograph, do the very best you can using compass direction, even labeling things. For example, if you say, by the red truck or by the evergreen tree or something that we can identify what it is that you are talking about, so when we review our minutes or anyone else reviews the minutes, everyone else can understand what exactly is that you're talking about. If there are any questions, certainly we'll do our best to respond to you. However, what we cannot do is give you legal advice. I also want to let everyone know where the emergency exits are, right, left, and back. Please silence your cell phones. And I think that's it for starters. All right. Next on our agenda is the July 19th minutes. Everyone's had a chance to review those. I would like to entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make that motion for approval for the July 19th minutes.
Thank you, Donna. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carried. Mr. Rotash, you're first. Come on up. Yep, right there. So this is, we had you back again, partly because it went to the county planning board. And the other is at the last meeting, not this previous one, the one before, we needed some fine tuning on your application. So one of the pieces that I think the board was looking at was your assertion that there really was no other place to put that garage. And also you were saying that it was cost prohibitive, but there really wasn't anything to support it. So we were looking to you to put a little more facts into why it can't go anywhere else and why it's cost prohibitive. And if you want to talk about anything else, certainly you can do that. So the floor is yours.
Well, the biggest reason why I can't houses is that, well, first of all, the house is 300 feet back from the road, so that kind of limits spots, but everything from my house to the backyard, all hardwood forest, and I have a lot of them down to get to the other point, which is it's a garage, and I don't want to make it 400 house. I personally think if you look down the driveway, the house is up, and the garage would be on the right side of the driveway, and it's 5 feet. So the house, the north side is close to the property line. I don't think east side of the house, which is the back, and I've got 4 leach lines. And on the south side of the house, I have my septic and box over there, and I also have a large dugout area that, original owner had a double door in the basement that you could drive a small vehicle in. So you can expect that whole area there is drained by a ditch that goes out back to the, at a place close to the house, because of a lot of those reasons. Rather not cut down all those trees.
All right, in your handout, go ahead, sorry, I interrupted you. Go
No,
ahead.
I bought the place. I like living in the woods, and if you, map that I got here with all the, elevations on it, pretty much shows that the spot that I would like to do it is higher than, not by much, you know, a few feet here and there, but it's higher than any place around it. Require me to do a whole lot to put the, not any trees. Put enough fill down, maybe 2 feet is probably all it would take. Go ahead, you got a question?
Yeah, you said earlier, 300 feet from the road, but your handout indicates it's about 260
Yeah,
feet.
I don't,
And I think we had some, I think Al may have said at the meeting that we were here before, that it was about 260 from the road. Does that sound about right?
yeah, I don't know if I agree with that, but I don't even know why it's,
Well, that's the handout that you gave us.
yeah, I know. Let's just say 260, that's fine, you know.
Right,
use
we're
that,
just,
but-
and the barn closest to the road is about 210 feet from the property line,
Yeah.
where School Street is. And the photographs that you submitted today, there's 3 photographs, and it's School Road sight line, and caption, looking from the north, looking down the driveway, looking from the south. I can't speak for the entire board, but it appears to be that there's a significant amount of trees and vegetation that guards at least the sight line to your home. Is that fair to say?
Goes pretty well, and there's the house. Behind the house is, front of the house back, it's all forest.
No, you missed my point. You submitted this photograph, 3 photographs.
Yeah.
Right? And it's captioned School Road Sight Line, right? So far, so good?
Yeah.
And 2 of the photographs, looking from the north, looking from the south, are photographs from the road looking towards your property.
Yeah.
And I had asked you, is it fair to say that there's a significant amount of vegetation that guards your house? I can't see your house from the road.
Yeah.
There we go. That's what I'm looking for.
That's the point you were making there. You're right. You can't see. The only time you can see anything is when the leaves fall off the trees, I guess. But
And I think it would be fair to say then, if you put the garage where the proposed location is, you're not going to be able to see the garage either from the road. Okay. So I think as far as being cost prohibitive, were you referencing, as far as if you were to put it behind your house, you'd have to start cutting down a number of hardwood trees, and that's where the cost is going to come in? Or is there more to the cost?
it's more than a cost. I just
Okay.
basically
All
cut
right.
down a whole lot of trees.
Let me back up a little for you. Would you agree that the code does not permit a structure to be forward of your primary house?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and you're asking for a variance, and a variance is an exception to the code. You're looking for an exception to the rule. So far, so good?
Yeah.
In order for the board to grant the variance and acceptance to the rule, we need to follow these 5 criteria, and you filled out the form. And one of the elements, one of the criteria is that the benefits sought by the applicant can or cannot be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue, other than an area variance. That's why we're asking you questions about where else can it go, and you saying, I don't feel like it, that's not a category.
Hey, my house looks like it was built on fill dirt years ago. And there's a steep drop off on the side of my house, which is the back. That's not a good situation. I'd have a lot of fill dirt in there, and then not a good idea. I wouldn't be interested in firing up anywhere else. 33 years to look at this. This is the
All right. And you were
It's
asking,
also an issue where, this is a garage, and I got a perfect spot that isn't too far to walk to the house. I'm not getting any younger, and tired, and I don't want to put the thing out back in the woods if I can, it just doesn't.
you're asking for a 40 by 40 barn, correct?
Yeah, actually, it's gonna be 40 by 45.
And 40 by 45, and that counts the eaves. That's not the walls, it's eave to eave. Overhang to overhang, that counts as your space.
Yeah.
Understood?
Yeah.
Okay. I think we have an idea of where we are. Donna, do you have any questions for Mr. Rotash?
I do. When we had this last huge rain, and this part was flooded, what was going to happen to the garage when it floods like that?
I've got a video on my phone. I could show you what happened last weekend. And that area doesn't need the flow of water at all. The drainage is out front of my place, about halfway down the driveway. The water was going over the driveway last Saturday, so where I want to put the barn now is only about 2 or 3 higher than the land around it, but it's high enough where I think it's a good spot to do it.
What I looked at was pretty flooded. Okay, that's my only question.
Sarah, questions?
Bill, I guess my question's for you. By putting this barn here, is that going to change the drainage? Is there more drainage concerns that will? Because if he already has drainage issues, now putting this large structure on the front yard, is there going to cause more drainage issues?
I haven't visited this site, but I'm just going off the contour map that I have here. My opinion is it appears that he's placing it at one of the higher points of the property. And it appears that everything else around it is lower. And I believe that Mr. Rotash had said there's a culvert under your driveway that allows,
Low spot there.
okay, where the water does flow either across the driveway or through a culvert. I really don't see where it's going to make things any worse.
Any worse? Mr. Rotash, we did ask you to provide us a hardship as far as cost. You, besides not wanting to cut down trees, did you provide us that information as far as what the hardship cost-wise would be to put it further back? And are you lenient in any way of moving it further back than its current location? Or you're dead set, again, this is how you want it?
I'm not interested, because, and I could go through the reasons again, but it's not gonna, apparently it's, I can now tell you one other thing I just forgot to mention. My neighbor directly to the south of me happens to have a garage that's closer to the road than his house, and I don't know, also, it would require a lot. I mean, I've got a driveway in place. I wouldn't have to touch and add on to it. If I put it anyplace else, I'm gonna have to, gotta cost a lot of money. I mean, a lot of fill and heavy equipment. Just, I don't think I'd be interested in doing any of that. I think it would ruin the charm of my property. I like it the way it is. I think it's the way I want to keep it. Having trees is kind of important to me. I like living in the woods. Well, that doesn't matter, but can't give you any better reasons for not wanting to chop up the forest, you know?
Okay. Fred, questions?
Well, the application is pretty consistent for a 40 by 40, but you want to change it to 40 by 45. You're sure?
Well, I spoke to the barn builder this morning, and I told him that I wanted to have like an 8-foot section. The north side, be on the east side, would be an outdoor section, like 8 foot. In other words, it'd be an 8 by 40 foot section with a roof going over it. And that's all. There wouldn't be any walls on the outer part. And he suggested it. He said he could make it work if I had. So I asked him if 45 foot would work for the. Yes, you know, his idea, and I agreed with it.
So we should change the application to 40 by 45.
Can't do that. There's a notice issue. You provided an application that asked for 40 by 40. Now, you in midstream want to say, well, I want something a little bigger. If you want to go 45 feet to the west, that's really not going to make any difference. But if you want to come further to the east, make it longer, now you're closer to the road, now you're more than the front line of your home, you're changing the notice of your application.
The east side I'm talking about would be, the 5-foot extension would be.
The north
To the back of the house.
to the east then.
To the, towards
It
the,
would be not closer to the road, but
all right, I'm looking at your compass direction. I'm relying on your compass direction, and your compass direction seems to indicate that
I think it's backwards.
it's towards the east.
I think mine's backwards on the
I
east
think
and
it's
west.
backwards.
It's backwards?
Yes.
Okay.
The north and south is good, but the east and west
East and
are
west is wrong.
reversed.
Well, what I'm looking at, east, right? I think he has it right on the drawing.
Not on,
Not, we're looking at a topo map, Matt.
Oh, sorry, I'm looking at whatever screen you're sharing here,
Okay.
which is the, I don't know, it looks like it's crayon drawn, but it's yellow and pink with maybe we refer to that.
Well, that's right. That drawing there has got east and west correctly.
so you're saying it would be
the
to
area
the,
that I wanted to extend is on the north.
On the east, so you,
Towards the house.
so the proposed location of the structure will be no closer than 210 feet from your property line. Whether it's 40 by 40 or 40 by 45.
Right, the setback is gonna stay the same. The side that I wanna put this overhang on, east side, back end of my property.
Okay, understood. But any other questions?
No.
Matt, questions?
Yeah, just a couple. In general, I mean, I, like Sarah, would have wished the applicant would have provided a little more information on maybe the financial hardship aspects of this. However, I do agree with the applicant that it really isn't feasible to place the barn behind the house. He's got septic, leach lines. I wouldn't expect him to have to run his driveway over that to get to the garage. So I'm okay there with the location where he wants to put the garage. The issue I'm just having now is the whole ambiguity of everything. And maybe I just don't have the drawing here in the package, but is there an engineering drawing? Because what I'm looking at, right, is the original drawing that has 40 to 50, it has 210 feet, it has 300 feet from, the house is 300 feet from School Road. I just want to make sure we know exactly what this is. Because I'm sure when you go in front of the planning board, they're going to want to see a drawing package too.
There's no instrument.
Does the board have an actual engineering drawing in front of them?
There's no instrument survey, no.
All that really we can go on, Matt, is that the structure will be no closer than 210 feet to the property line. It could be 211, 215, but no closer than 210.
Okay. And there's no other variance. Obviously, the size of the barn just dictates that it goes to the planning board to be reviewed, and that's not our purview here. And so if all we're doing here is going over whether it's 210 feet or not, then I'm fine, right? Whether it's 45 or 50 feet, as long as it doesn't get any closer than 210, and then as long as it passes the gate of the planning board, that, like I said, that's not our purview here. So my only, I guess, disappointment is that we normally get more. We normally see more, but I think, my opinion, we probably have what's normally required, but it's enough to go on. It's enough to go on. That's all I have.
All right.
That's all I have.
All right. So I echo a lot of what Matt is describing. I'm trying to help you. We cannot fill in these blanks all by ourselves. These blanks are the criteria. The first one, whether an undesirable change would or would not change the character of the neighborhood. Number two, whether or not the applicant can or cannot achieve by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue. Whether or not the area variance is or is not substantial. Whether or not the variance will produce an adverse impact to the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood or district. And whether the alleged difficulty is self-created. We just can't make up these facts and plug them in. We rely on the applicant to provide us the facts, to provide us the information, so we can see if we can plug those facts in. There's a threshold, there's a criteria. And what Matt is saying is, well, some of this isn't good enough. It's close, but it's not good enough. That's what we're concerned about. And we've asked you a few times to help us find the facts on why it is that it can't go anywhere else. And I'm hearing, I don't want to put it anywhere else. I don't feel like it. I'm not going to do, that's not You can have that
Not what
opinion.
I told you.
Okay, what'd you tell me?
I told you
What'd you tell me?
I said, I live in a forested area, and I do not cut down my trees, huge amount of them, to put this barn up when I have an open area that.
Right, about, do you remember?
Tell me why it's not good. I know it's closer to the road than the house is.
You remember the conversation we had about 6 weeks ago? It was a Zoom meeting
Yeah.
before we met in person, and I had asked you that we needed some numbers, some dollars on what is it going to cost you to put this barn some other place, meaning whether or not it was cost prohibitive. And I was hearing, I don't want to do it. There's trees there. Well, if you were to put something in front of, say, gee, I got an estimate from an arborist that said it's going to cost me, hypothetically, $50,000 just to clear the trees, and that's going to put $50,000 more into the barn, then I don't want to do that. I understand that. I think we would understand that. But right now, all we have to go on is you say it's a wooded lot, and you want to cut down trees. So that I think is what Matt and what I'm trying to tell you, that it's,
Claiming a hardship, by the way. I'm claiming that I bought the property because I liked it. It was wooded. There's a state park that's wooded right behind it. And I want to keep it that way. I'm sorry, I just don't, it's not a hardship issue with me.
okay, all right. So let's run through, is anyone from the audience online? No. Okay. All right, I'm not seeing anyone present that wants to speak for or against. All right, I think I've heard enough. Is there anyone else from the board that wants to ask questions, comments, concerns? Right. As we're going through, I'm charged with filling in these blanks, if you will, on what facts go into each of the criteria. And then the board decides if they want to bring a motion, and then they vote on it. Okay? So I think, if I hear you right, you don't want to come back and present more evidence. You're done, that's enough. Or do you?
Do what I have to do, that's all I can say, you know, I mean, I want to, but if I have to, then I'll do it. You know,
You can do whatever you
I'm
want.
not claiming a hardship, so I'm not saying that I can't do it because of a dollar amount or anything like that, so I don't understand why that's important.
Hardship, maybe, let me rephrase the term hardship. The criteria is whether or not it's feasible for you to do it another way. Feasibility is oftentimes referred to as cost, or you did make a reference to, gee, my septic lines are here, or the leach lines are over there. That makes some sense. You're not going to move the leach lines, you're not moving the septic. That makes sense. To go back into the woods right now, that seems to be the only, maybe not the best, as we're trying to figure it out. But if it can't go back there, if it can't be moved any further back, that's what we're trying to find. I think I hear you that cost has something to do with it. Does it not?
To some degree, but not, honestly, it's not the big issue. I got a house that's back from the road a lot farther than most houses. And that creates a kind of a hardship for me to do it within code. Hey, that's my whole.
Okay, let me just run through the board real quick. Sarah, do you have enough information to rule on the variance today?
Yes.
Donna,
Yes?
you do?
Yes.
Okay. Fred?
Yep.
Matt?
Yep.
Okay. So on the second, whether or not the applicant can or cannot achieve by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue. Sarah, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm sorry, repeat, Mike, I'm sorry.
I'm looking at, I think we have enough facts to fill in criteria 1, 3, 4, and 5. but I'm concerned about number 2. I want to know your thoughts about the benefits sought by the applicant can or cannot be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. What are your thoughts?
One of the questions I asked the applicant is if he was willing to move the barn back any further. He is not willing to change anything than what was presented. So I feel like he's really not trying to work with the board, really. There are no trees in certain areas, so I feel as though he could move it back further, and there would be minimal trees removed even if he had to. But I'm not saying that it needed to be moved all the way behind the house, and I am just one vote. But I'm just saying that if you were able to move it back further, then there may be you could achieve what you're trying to.
Okay.
That's my thought.
Thank you. Donna, your thoughts on the second criteria?
I'm going to echo hers, just his comment, not interested.
Okay. Fred, your thoughts on the second criteria?
Well, I think that he's identified, even though they don't have quantities, quite a lot of extra work. And whether it's 210 or 215 or 220 doesn't make much difference.
So
It's all trees in front of it anyway, so
you are of the opinion that he cannot achieve by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue?
yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
That's good for
I've,
now.
I've been there and looked at it, and I agree with him.
Okay. Matt, where are you on the second criteria? He can or cannot?
You know, I agree with Fred.
Okay.
As long as it's 210 feet, there's a couple things that do this for me. The amount of vegetation, like you talked about, the foliage from the road, you're really not going to see it, or you won't see much of it. The other aspect, again, we're not in a subdivision here. The applicant is not asking for a shed or a garage to be placed forward to the front line of the house where, all of the homes are all lined up in a row and there's no vegetation in the front yard. So, generally, I and others have been a little more, lenient when it comes to this particular code, because I think that's really what it was designed to do. It was designed to protect those homes, not really protect, but keep the look of the homes that are in the subdivisions where everything is just kind of all in line and has a more uniform look. That's not this neighborhood. So if he keeps it 210 feet away, I'm okay with it and agree on this particular criteria.
Thank you. All right, so let's run through, before I cut you off, I don't want to cut you off. Is there anything else you want to add before we run through the criteria?
Reading off of there, that I should have.
You did.
all these questions.
You filled the form out, and these questions were on your application.
I didn't. Satisfactory.
It's
I don't remember back that far, to be honest.
It's okay. Would you like an opportunity to review them?
Oh, that's okay.
Okay. So we're going to run through the criteria. The first, an undesirable change would not be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties created by granting an area variance. The applicant is requesting a 40 by 45 barn to be, it's forward of the home and no closer than 210 feet from the property line of School Street. The home, as photographs provided by the applicant from School Street, is significantly vegetated, which would indicate that where the proposed barn is going to go could not be viewed or seen from School Street. Anyone like to add anything to the first criteria? Second, the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. I know we're a bit split on this. I am with Donna and Sarah that we've asked you to provide information on why, other than you don't want it to go anywhere else, why it can't go in any other location. So I think you have not provided sufficient information to satisfy the second criteria. Would anyone like to add anything to the second criteria? Third, the area variance is substantial. It is 45 feet now forward, no, that's not right, it's gonna be 50 feet forward of the primary structure. However, as indicated in the first criteria, the house is buffered and guarded by a significant amount of vegetation. Would anyone like to add anything to the third criteria?
No.
Fourth, the proposed variance will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical and environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. While we did have a significant amount of rain last week, our code enforcement officer seems to think that the proposed location should not have any kind of adverse effect or impact on the physical and environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district, and that should be satisfactory.
Can I ask a question?
Ask a question.
On the county paper, it says the barn site will require 3 foot of fill. So when we put 3 foot of fill on there, will it make any difference?
My opinion, it's already at one of the highest points
Okay,
of the lot.
okay,
If you're adding fill, you're just raising it even further.
okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Fifth, the alleged difficulty is self-created. The consideration is relevant to the decision of the board, but should not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. And I think the only conditions we'll request or have is that it be dark sky compliant. Would anyone like to add anything to any of the criteria or the conditions for the proposed variance? I have a motion for approval.
Make that motion.
Fred, second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Donna. Any further discussion? None. All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Me.
2 opposed. All right, Mr. Rotash, you have your variance. Make sure you comply with the planning board and your building permits.
I guess the next step, correct me if I'm wrong, is how I can go and get this barn's garage scheduled to be built. Nothing holding back, that's what.
I would strongly recommend, you listening to me? I would strongly recommend you communicate with the code enforcement officer, Al, to make sure all your paperwork is in order, building permits, planning board, town planning board, all that's locked and loaded before you start ordering materials and telling your builder to start digging. All right, Al, is there anything else he needs to know?
Don't think so. And you do need to go to the planning board. You could submit building plans at the same point in time. We will not issue a building permit until you have approval from the planning board. Okay, so you need to stop into the office, get the application for site plan review, and get that process going.
Good question. Is it okay with me? I told you I have to put some gravel down where I'm gonna help the boundaries of this building. I just wanna know when I gotta compact it and everything.
I cannot provide, what you're asking for is legal advice. I can't give
Yeah,
that to you. You
that's what I
can
was gonna
ask
say.
Al on what you need to do, how you need to do it. If you want to put gravel down, or I strongly recommend you communicate what you want to do first with Al or a code enforcement officer and say, hey, this is what I want to do. All right, but not here. All right, we've done what we needed to do,
When you come into the office, we can talk about it.
Yeah, I'll be here.
okay?
Thank you.
Very good. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Foreman. Thank you for your patience. Yes, so briefly, your request for a variance is to place a fence within a conservation easement that violates section 211-41F. Right? Correct. Okay, so, go ahead and make your presentation, and I think the board is going to have some questions for you.
Thank you for having me here. My first opinion. I have a fence on my property. I start by saying that I do try to help permits, building permits. Several phone calls where I asked you or someone to come visit. Absolutely sure it is where I put it. All times with that, and got my eyes crossed. And once I did put it up, they made sure that I was wife and six up decorative retaining wall on the back side. I never see it. That's just kind of the character that I wanted that day. I tried to go the same approach. I feel personally disposed. A lot of people agree that it was very neat. Property here, this is what was existing. It was a very long time. There before the fence was in place, so as long as it wasn't touched, it didn't need to be maintained. It was falling apart in the wrought iron, and it was sticking out, and it was anywhere from a foot high to 3 feet high. Very dangerous to be with. A toddler dog was clearly a habit. Those calls back there, it's just, so I went the approach of just reaching out to my neighbor. And we worked out a deal where I would take out that. Our point is home, especially last year, all we had was our home. He has, which we learned is not strong. The other side is not effective, but attractive, but do patch it, TV or sit around, talking, and put that on his eye. Doesn't understand it. Coupled with that, our dog is not dog. He's a rescue dog who's a flight rescue. In fact, a dog tracker. He's gotten out a couple of times, and that tracker brought him back home. Up on Willis Hill and Dryer and logged in several miles. My resolution to this problem, up a dog line, dog run with a 30-foot. But the problem is, all I want to do with this age, together, dog is tied to a line. Happened. In fact, it's got me a dozen times. I've body from it. Didn't look in my backyard and think that I have a dog run. We're going to be outside. Goes out and plays, and my dog barks at the window, and we switch. Dog goes outside and plays, my eyes in the window. So we wanted to put up a fence. We put it hide because to express this and how telling them with a less than functional eye, high-risk dog, run up against hazardous fence, tell you, was unique but not unique. So what I found out later after that was that cart before the horse, or probably should have gone to the conservation board first. Both on these matters. So I retroactively, I suppose, conservation board agreed that it was open-ended. I'm not sure if you have a minutes, but down here. Town meeting minutes that very succinct. I'll be up here talking about. No, the conservation board. So, doesn't it explain the reason for wanting to put a fence in this? That was the last of it on March 16th.
Oh, I'm sorry, but okay. Is that better? Test. Is that? It's showing green.
Oh, there's one package here.
It says it's on. Nope, no. Test. You want me to just speak up more? Can everybody hear me okay? Can Matt hear me? Okay.
I can hear you, as long as the green light's on, it should
Oh, is it just for recording then? Is that why?
be, yeah, YouTube, we can hear you, but as long as the green light's on.
Yep, the green light's on. I'm not sure if it was before or not, but it is now. Okay. Sorry about that. So the Conservation Board left it open-ended. They talked about doing a site visit. You can, go see in the meeting minutes on YouTube, but it is there talking about going to do that. So I've got an order to remedy here. I think that's also part of my application. And essentially what I'm looking to do, and I didn't want to come to this meeting without having more options to put on the table. I didn't want to just go over the same things and beat a dead horse hoping for a different result. I am hoping and really hoping for some kind of relief here and some understanding and some help to figure out what might be a better course of action. Now, I do have a couple ideas, and one of them actually came from Jack Marin. So on the date of the town board meeting on March 8th, I got a courtesy call from Jack at around noon, and he and I had about a 15, 20-minute conversation where I went over a lot of the same things I'm going over now, and he expressed to me that he thought that, you know, the board would have a lot of questions, but ultimately they might be receptive towards something that resembles an agreement, in addition to a hold harmless, where I agree to keep the fence up while I have a child and while I have a flight risk dog. And then when I don't have either a child that's, you know, going to be at risk of getting hurt, or a dog that's either too old or past, then I take the fence down. I'm here to revisit that as an option. I don't know how receptive you guys would be to that. I don't think it's ideal, but I'm willing to work with you guys on what you think might be fair. I'm also open to hopefully discussing my variance request as I have filled out in my application and that you see here. And then a third option that I recently thought of, and it might make the most sense, but again, that's, I guess it only works if everyone feels it works. So the conservation easement that I do have is on the back side of my property, the north side, stretching west to east. And I would like to propose that it get moved. I have, and this is not part of the application, but I just drew up some drawings in Bluebeam that I have. This is the conservation easement for the Evergreen Meadows subdivision. I'll pass these around.
You're
This-
asking that the easement get moved?
Yeah, just let her finish.
Yep, so just, yeah, just a, what is it called, a land swap, I think, a land swap agreement. So this is my property right here. I just kind of did an overlay of what you have on the Ontario County Encore system. And I've had this blown up too, I'll pass it out. The back side of it is 4,730 square feet. That's what I'm subject to for the easement. I'm proposing to move it to the front of my property and actually add to it to the tune of about 5,200 or like 500 more square feet in consideration of this proposal. And not all of the easements are created equal in all of our properties, so I've highlighted in yellow, you know, ones that are just a little smaller. Mine's about 3 times that big. And this is to illustrate that there are 3 subdivisions on the property that do have conservation easements that are on the front-facing part of the property towards the street, not on the backside. And all of them are continuous. And the portion of land that I'd like you to take a look at is also continuous and larger than the original. So this is the conservation easement. And that's for all of Evergreen Meadows subdivision. And this is a more blown-up version illustrating a zoomed-in area showing the 30-foot conservation easement on the north side of the property, and then where I would propose to put it as an alternative.
Thank you.
And just kind of last thing I wanted to point out too, and I think you do have these, I know I emailed them to Kim. At first, I was reluctant to reach out to my neighbors because before I put the fence up, I asked all of them, what are your feelings about it? Be straightforward with me, please, just let me know, is it going to be a bother to you? Here's what I'm thinking of putting up, here's some pictures of it, what are your thoughts? And all of them were in support of it. And the one who encouraged it the most was my neighbor to the north, Mr. Toivusko, who I have a great relationship with. He liked the idea that I took out the old fence, put in the new one. It looks in keeping with the natural landscape. And I have letters of support from my 3 adjoining neighbors that all have the most stake in the fence. Right here, I believe those are also part of the application. And I just received one in my mailbox today from my neighbor to the south across the street who can see the fence but isn't, you know, I wouldn't say affected by it, but nonetheless, Kelly Coleman sent me a letter in support of that as well.
We have that. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I'll pause there. I mean, I've got a few more things, but I think I could probably take a pause there if you guys want to ask questions.
Okay. So let's review a little bit. I don't think you let us know, it might be in your packet, but humor the board. When did you buy the house?
Well, when?
When did you buy the
Oh,
house?
January 2018,
2018.
correct. Yep.
So you've been there since 2018, and when you purchased the home, did you know that there was an easement there?
I wouldn't say I knew to the extent that I do now. I'll put it that way.
Were you represented by counsel?
No.
When you purchased the home, you didn't have an attorney do the closing?
Oh, I had an attorney, yeah, but
Was there
I don't
title insurance?
recall.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. If I'm thinking about it, and I honestly don't know if it came up in conversation. And if it did come up in conversation, if I'm just being brutally honest, I probably might have glanced over it, that part of the conversation, just to further everything else with closing, because at that point in time, we were just dead set on getting the house.
So this, and it's in your packet, the easement that's on file at the county clerk's office, December 1st, 1994, a no-touch permanent conservation easement. Is it accurate?
Yes,
No touch means you can't put anything there.
or mow it, or pull weeds, or
Leave it
anything.
alone. Don't touch it. It is what it is. That's how a no-touch conservation easement works.
Does it say no touch, or does it say, I did read the language of the conservation easement. I don't recall it saying no touch, but,
I'm paraphrasing it, no touch. But if you'd like me to read the language, I can do that, but it sure sounds like you can't touch it. Do you want me to do that, or you
I know, it's like one paragraph, right? There was one thing in there that made it sound subjective, but if,
Paragraph 4. No landowner shall disturb the natural state of any of the property located within the deed restrictive areas or immediately adjacent to said property except for walking trails. That sounds like no touch to me. You just leave it alone. Whatever nature does is what nature does there.
was there one more part to it after that? Was there another paragraph after that?
Sure.
should've-
Paragraph 5, all lands within the deed restrictive areas as shown on file, the subdivision map shall remain in their natural condition and undisturbed, except with the exception of removing or altering features.
Features. That's the part that caught me, except for removing or altering features. That to
Do you
me,
think that means a fence?
well, I mean, like, what, all they did was dig a hole and put a post in it. I understand it. I'm not trying to skirt around what it is. I am looking for a conversation about it, but
When
I'm
I
not-
see paragraph 5, shall remain in their natural condition undisturbed. You put a shovel in that conservation easement, you are disturbing it. You put a fence in there, you're disturbing it. I don't see how you can make any kind of argument that putting anything in that conservation easement that's on file since 1994, and you knew or should have known about it, that you can put a fence in there. Irregardless of, you have some compelling reasons. We've been through this, not you, but this board has been through this before. Well, the applicant says, well, I know that that's a no-touch conservation easement, but I want to do this anyway, and I'm willing to do a hold harmless, and I'm willing to, that's all fine and good, but it's on file, and that's a significant ask for putting anything in those no-touch conservation easements. And globally, when you look at the town of Victor, I think the town board has been pretty good about, yeah, they want the town to grow, but they don't want such population here as you take all the green space away. So there are places they say, well, we need some easements so that there is no building going on in there. Just let Mother Nature do whatever he, she, it does. So that's one concern I have.
okay.
You also went in front of the town board, right, March 8th, 2021, and they said, no, you can't do that. And the Conservation Board, March 16th, 2021, when they said they were going to research the language of the easement, They can research it all they want, but as I'm looking at it, and I'm just one voice here, I don't know how they could even begin to say anything different than what my opinion is on, you can't touch that. And also, May 29, 2021, did you receive an order of remedy from the code enforcement officer?
Yes.
You know what it said?
Yep.
Told you to take the fence down, didn't it?
That was an option, yes.
An option.
That was an option. That was the first option. Removing the fence in its entirety or permitting an inspection demonstrating the fence is not placed in an easement, or submitting an application for an area variance allowing the fence to remain in the easement and then fully complying with any decisions made by the zoning board of appeals.
Okay.
I opted for the third.
Okay.
And truthfully, I mean, I would not even have put up a fence if I either didn't have a kid or didn't have a dog. But because I have both, and the circumstances are that it's not safe for them to be outside, that's why I did what I did.
Putting the fence forward of the easement and to the south.
To the north.
No, further south.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This is not in the easement.
That was an option that was discussed. It basically, with the layout, it doesn't show, you can pull up one, I think, with trees and stuff in the way, but on the left-hand side, it contours down. The right side has trees, and it basically renders it very, very shallow, and almost unusable for the purposes of having a kid or a dog out there. Things like tag, fetch, frisbee, throwing a ball, running around, not running into a tree. The most usable part of the area is what you see here on the right side of the picture, the south side of the fence.
Okay.
Right.
All right, let's take some questions from the board. Matt, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple. So you received the denial of the permit and you put the fence in.
And here he is.
You can't hear me, huh? Stand by. How about now? I'm unmuted.
Cutting in and out on YouTube, now we can't hear you.
All right, let's,
How about now? Can you hear me now?
anybody have his number?
Not with me.
I haven't changed anything on my end. How about now? So if you want, I can just dictate my question to you.
Susan, can he hear you?
I can hear you, yeah?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
So he thumbed up that he can hear me, and I can hear my ear, but I don't know why. Can you call Mike
I can call Mike. Yep.
at 0
Yes.
704 671?
704-3671. Okay.
Yes.
Actually, I can't call Mike. Because I've only got internet. I've got no phone. So if you want, I can text you my questions in chat.
Oh, he doesn't have phone, he's only got internet, so he
Oh, great.
can't. I don't know.
No.
I don't know what happened.
All right.
How about,
Sure.
I can text my questions to him. I could,
And I'll read them.
does Mike have an iPhone?
Yes.
Yes.
Hold on.
not always the best answer, is it?
Try clicking on more. Bottom right, the dots.
Let's see.
Do you want me to try turning this off if it was off before and we were able to hear him? Do you want me to just test it out?
I mean, you could.
Here.
Can you hear me now?
I don't hear anything.
No, I was just gonna have FaceTime will work, but I just don't have Mike's email address. If I could, let's see, this release his iPhone. What was his phone number? 585.
Yeah, if he calls me, but he hasn't phone with him?
Got his phone, but he said he
What's his phone number? Again.
He just calls me, they don't put it on speakerphone.
What's Mike's phone number again?
It is 704-3671.
Maybe you need the area code. Where is he anyway?
Yeah, it's just,
Long ways away?
Adirondacks or
yeah, I have internet, but I have no cell phones. I have no telephone service, so I can't call a phone
Need the
number.
area code first.
That's the part that he's not getting. Hold on.
Yeah, he's just got internet and cell service.
There's it.
Can you type in the chat? Is it? Oh, there is one in the chat. Looks like it just. What's that say?
All right, hold on. I think it might be. All right, Mike. Come in audio here. No, that still didn't work.
A test from some.
Hold on.
There you are.
Okay, so I'm going to turn this off. I have to use FaceTime. Everybody hear me or?
Yeah, we can hear you. Just speak up a little bit. We can hear you.
Okay. Thank you for being patient with that. So my first question is, so you received the denial of the permit, but the fence still went. What happened there?
So what happened there is, before, I had to get on the schedule over a year in advance because, as probably everyone's aware, just any sort of home improvement that requires lumber requires getting on the schedule a year, and now like a year and a half, almost 2 years in advance for some people. This was a professional installer who was booked out more than a year. I had him come and survey the house, and this was in anticipation of getting approval. And I put down a deposit with him afterwards because he was so busy and he was trying to secure lumber pricing. And I just had every reason to believe that I would get approval for this, just based upon how things went with the shed and how forthright and upfront I was about everything. I guess you could say took a bit of a gamble, a bit of a risk with that. But it was one I was willing to take because I was just so done with watching my kid and dog just that entire situation. I could rehash it if you want, but that was the reason why I had to get on the books. I had to get a deposit down to get on the schedule to secure material and then apply.
At some point, though, you knew it was, you realized that you weren't going to get a permit, or at least you didn't have a permit in hand before something went in the ground.
Correct. Was that?
So the other part, and I know you mentioned it a little bit, is why can't you just be, why in this case can't you be compliant with the code? I know you'll lose 30 feet, but you still have plenty of land back there.
So the 30 feet lost, that entire square footage is all usable. There's more pictures in there too that can illustrate that, but
It's usable, but right now, it's not usable for any type of structure or alteration, right, or a fence. So I'm not saying you can't go on that property, but why couldn't you have the fence where it should be?
so if I were to bring it in 30 more feet onto the south side of the property line, it doesn't just take that rectangular square footage, it more or less shrinks it down to a square, just because on the right side, I'm just gonna say right and left, on the right side is a bunch of trees, on the left side is the shed and a fire pit, and then it slopes down, and there's trees on either side. So basically, if you were to look out my deck, you would see a narrow pathway out that widens out into the easement, which is where my dog and kids spend most of their time running around, is that area, just because it renders the rest of it more or less, not, I don't want to say unusable, but there's not nearly as much utility just because of all the other structures, trees. It's just not a usable area. I encourage folks to come out and take a look, and still absolutely would to come see it. I think anyone would agree that it's the most usable portion.
What's a little different with this one for me is it's a conservation easement. It's something that has been with the land since you've purchased the home. There's plenty of homes in Victor that have conservation easements, and I know it's like talked about. We're very protective of those. Some of them you can't even mow the grass, let alone put a fence or any type of permanent structure. There's quite a file on this. I've read everything in the file. I've read the feedback from the town board. I've read the feedback from the conservation board itself. I just don't really see anything that even remotely can get my support to have the fence put in the easement. It's just, everything's unfortunately been done backwards on this at some point. And I understand you're kind of under the gun a little bit, but at some point, you knew that fence was going in there without approval. And
I was desperate. And
I'm not gonna judge, but I'm just telling you, I just don't, anyway, I can support this application. I'm not, I can go on with the questions, but my colleagues will have a few more. There's been plenty asked by the town board, and I know you put your case here. I just don't see, and I'm only one vote. I just don't have anything that is unique to the property or the situation. I mean, I've got a dog and 2 kids, and my dog and kids run all over the place, especially when the kids are younger. I just don't think that is a reason for.
But was there a hazardous fence on one side of your property for your kid to fall on or run into, or?
Hold on, I failed to mention early on, when we are keeping a record here, we gotta try really hard not to talk over each
Sorry.
other, because the recording device is gonna hear voices, and that's gonna be a problem. So let Matt finish, and then when he's done, then you can say what you need to say. Yeah, go ahead, continue.
Yep, as long as everyone heard what I said, I'm done. My comment was just, I don't see anything unique in this particular situation, and with the existence of the easement when the applicant bought the house, and everything that's transpired all the way through, not getting a permit, getting denied the variant, or getting denied the permit, and the fence still going in the ground. I just don't see how I could support this.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to mention that I guess I would disagree that it's unique in that, I mean, that fence, and I have so many more photos of it if you're able to cycle through them, but it is such a hazard. It was right there on my property line, and there's nothing, look, I mean, there's another one. There's nothing there that says to a 2-year-old kid at the time, hey kid, stop short of that thing, I mean, he's gonna run up and slip, fall, he has a bad eye, his depth perception's off, he trips, the dog trips him up, and that existed. I couldn't.
But you decided to do everything at once that you wanted to do. Never did you come in front of this board or any other board and just talk about the removal of that other fence or something different or a grander plan. You went and did it, and we had no opportunity, nor did the public have an opportunity to discuss various different options on what you could and couldn't do. You just went and did it.
But my neighbor who had that up it touches 9 other properties. It's a 6-acre plus parcel, and it acted as a barrier to 9 other property lines, and he was adamant about keeping that. So the agreement that we made, and one that was also suggested by the town board, was to work out a deal with the neighbor where I could put a fence along that back line right there. So in essence, it would be right along where the existing one is, but I had to connect it to my house to contain it. So it's not as, I don't think it's as black and white as I just, said, you know what, I'm gonna just disregard everything everyone's telling me on the board and go do it myself. I did try, I applied and I did come before the town board. I was already on the books, so I would have pushed it out another year if I didn't give a deposit. It was professionally done, there's photos of it. I needed to protect them. I couldn't do another year of just being outside and shadowing over top of him everywhere he runs.
Right. I know your interpretation of that easement, and I'm gonna look at it in a little different way. Every time you, your dog, your son steps into that easement, you're violating the easement. Don't disturb it. Shall remain in their natural condition and undisturbed. So if you read it to the letter of that easement, you put your foot and step on a weed, a blade of grass, mash it down, you've disturbed it, you're in violation. So even if we could say, put the fence in there, you can't even go back in there. You're not supposed to be in there.
So I guess I would ask the question, what would be the purpose of a variance request, if not to have unique circumstances where you could provide an approval for one?
I think this board does not have the authority to grant a variance in that easement. If you want to make a legal application to the town or whomever, you probably need a lawyer to move the easement to where you're proposing it to go, and that easement where it is today is now gone, you've swapped it, then you don't need an easement. But we can't do that. We can't make such a leap, make an exception into the rule when the language of the easement says, don't touch it. Don't put a fence in it, don't walk in it, don't cut anything down, don't mow, don't let your kids back there, don't let your dogs back there, don't let them poop. I can go on and on, but I don't think you can even touch it.
So, I guess 2 things. What would be your interpretation, your personal interpretation? I know you said you can't get legal counsel, but what would be your interpretation of the part of the second paragraph that says, with the exception of removing or altering features? Could you give me an example of what that might be?
In the second
Paragraph.
the second, there's paragraph 4, there's paragraph 5.
When you read it back to me, it was in the second paragraph.
The second paragraph, I don't think is what you want.
That'd be 5, probably.
Here, point to me which one you want me to look at.
Very last one, in 5.
All right, so in paragraph 5, the second clause, with the exception of removing or altering features.
Right.
Honestly, I don't know.
And I don't either.
Read
And,
the whole sentence. All
But you
lands
have to
within
look at the whole sentence.
right.
All
so-
lands within the deed restrictive areas, as shown on the filed subdivision map, shall remain in their natural condition and undisturbed, with the exception of removing or altering features.
So why does that last part exist?
To me, it does not mean you can do what you want. I'll say that. And it's somewhere between nothing and do what you want. I'm not an attorney, and nor am I the end-all, be-all here, but it...
What I think
really
you're
more
asking
altering
for,
features. The only thing I can think of is if a tree falls down and it goes over the walking path, then maybe it lets you move the tree.
So
That would be
to
my...
to be clear about what I'm
what I
asking,
think you're asking is for legal opinion. And I think I said, I can't give you a legal opinion on that. What in my opinion, as I read that paragraph as a whole, the conclusion I come to is, don't touch it. Don't walk in it. Don't put a shovel in it. I'm repeating myself.
Right.
Don't touch it.
so I predicated my question with, this isn't, I'm not asking for legal counsel because you disclosed that you can't give it, and I'm not a lawyer, so I can't give you my legal interpretation of it. I'm just as subjective as you are with the reading of it. I'm also saying that I did not read it and say, I can just do whatever I want. You know, they said, no, I'm going to go do whatever I want. My mindset was, you know, there's a process, there's a variance process, I want to explore that process. What I'm looking for isn't legal help, I'm looking for help, just help.
I understand that, but you
And-
kind of did that. You jumped the gun, and you knew there was a building permit process, you knew or should have known that that easement was there, but you found an excuse because of supply chain, COVID, whatever it is, to say, boy, I got to get this going, so I'm going to do it anyway, and you said it, take my chances.
So what, I guess, if you guys were in my shoes,
I'm
But we-
not. We're not.
right, I know.
You can't do that, we're not in your shoes.
right, so I'm just,
Well, when you were talking to Jack Marin and he spoke about a temporary, as long as you had the dog and the little guy was around, did he indicate there was some mechanism and means to do that?
there was a variance request at the town board, meaning that this conservation easement language that exists also to provide variances, which is otherwise just a, you know, patronizing activity to just come before a board to make a case for something that I can't get an approval for anyway.
That concerns me because your apparent conversation you had with the supervisor of Victor cuts right against the grain of the denial that the town board said, no, you can't do it. And we have a legal opinion
Can you hear me?
that says you can't do it.
Well, subsequent to that meeting, I sat down with Jack in his office. This was June 17th. And on June 17th, he said that he would like to reopen that idea. He said that the town board, even after the denial of the variance request, could go to the conservation board, that the town board would want to know what the conservation board said. I said you could take a look at the meeting minutes, it's verbatim right there, that he said if they even have a desire to do that. I said, why wouldn't they have a desire to do that? And then he said that he would have a personal conversation with Ed, who sat in on the call for the
Can you hear me?
the conservation board meeting, and talk about what the board decided they wanted to do. Those meeting minutes, however
Yes,
brief
that's
they
one,
are in
two.
the paperwork there in the meeting minutes, was probably a 40-minute meeting, where they left everything open-ended and said, yeah, this is unique, we would like to come take a look. And this was all after the fact too anyway, so I guess that's why I was really hoping for, like, okay, well, if they're willing to help, can we get the help? And yes, I did jump the gun, I did take my chances, I own that, I did it for my family, I did it for my kid, and also for my dog, like, yes, but I had to keep him safe, and I had to use my yard, and not just shadow him. I'm not going to repeat myself there, but my intentions were all in the right place, and I was hoping for some amount of relief in the process I went through with the shed, and how laborious that was on my end of not even having to, like, I was asking you constantly, and you obliged, like, you were probably annoyed with me, like, when's this guy going to stop calling me about his shed? It's fine, it's good. And Tom said that, and Sean said that, and you said that, and, you know, we talked about forerunners. And, I mean, I guess that was my opinion of how this would go.
I still, I have a big concern when I hear people come in and say, she said this, he said that, and they're not here. That is the definition of hearsay.
Sure.
Right? We're looking for facts, admissible facts to put down on paper so that when we look at the criteria, we can say, oh, here's an exhibit, it's an example, here's an exhibit that the applicant gave us, and that's what we're going to use. Or here is a letter from a neighbor, which you provided. That's evidence to be used. In this case, you're trying to use it for you. That's fine. But to use someone else's conversation when they're not here, especially when I know the town board meeting, the town board said no. So I don't know, I can't tell you how to solve that problem with whatever conversation you had or didn't have with Supervisor Marin, but he's not here, and he can't say, yes, I said it, no, I didn't.
So I didn't, I don't know who attends these meetings. I actually was expecting to see Jack up here somewhere. I guess a number of things. One, we could call him and ask him, I think. We could have a second meeting where he recounts the same conversation that I had with him. Or he said he talked to you, Ed, did he talk to you? He did talk to you? Okay. What did he have to say about?
That he was sympathetic to your situation, but eventually the town board was going to decide. They did. Fortunately, in your case, as you know, the town board said no. We still gave you the option to go to the conservation board, just so you can understand the easement language, so that you can understand what you could or could not do in the easement. But from what you said, I think, if I understand you correctly, is that you went to them and there's been no follow-up, but you haven't followed up either, is what I heard, right? You contacted them again to say, hey, I haven't heard from you, or?
No, he said he was going to talk to you by the June 28th meeting that you guys had, and specifically bring up this topic, not with respect to the denial at the town board meeting, but with respect to the subsequent conservation board meeting. That was my question. He said he was going to talk to you about the outcome of that meeting and what the conservation board wanted to do, and gave me the verbal commitment that he would talk to you about that to see if we could reopen and take another look at this. That the denial at the town board wasn't as final as it seemed to be because of how the conservation board meeting played out.
I don't know if that's true, but okay.
So you didn't have that conversation with you?
Speaking about your conversation with Jack, which I was not part of, right?
So,
Trying to reiterate what my conversation with Jack was.
so could we agree that if that was my conversation with Jack, and Jack were to have the opportunity to say yes or no, that is what we discussed, would that play a factor?
No, it can't, because you are trying to now bootstrap Supervisor Marin's opinion about what you want. You can say, this is what I said. You can say, I spoke to Jack Marin, but any indication that he had an opportunity to comment, he did comment, he shook his head, that is inadmissible. You can't use that.
What would be admissible?
As I said, a letter from a neighbor saying, I support your application.
So with respect to that,
Documents,
with respect to the application,
what Ed Kahovic said, if he's here, he said, look, this is what I remember, the conversation, how it went. He's here, so he's entitled to, that's his perception, that's his observations. You can say, these are my observations. What you can't say is, Supervisor Marin, whatever, fill in the blank. You could be using the same room, but
would it make a difference if he was sitting in that chair and said, yes, that was the conversation we had?
sure.
Then what would be the difference with a follow-up after this meeting?
It's a dog and pony show here, all right? We're going around the circle. I don't think,
Public record, especially with the town board, where he's received a denial, and we're still even debating whether this is even, whether we can even grant a variance to a conservation easement, especially since it's something that, runs with many properties, not just his.
So if that's the question, then I guess why even ask me up here, or even allow me to be here a third time if,
Because in this country, part of the Constitution allows what's called due process. Giving you an opportunity to make a presentation, to make your application. If we denied you right away saying, no, we don't want to hear it because you can't do it, that would be denying your voice to make an application for something that you want.
so does it not just become a patronizing activity at that point?
You feel patronized?
A little bit, yeah, I do. And I did at the town board meeting too. Truthfully, I mean, I don't feel like there's any amount of empathy or understanding. My feeling,
That's different from having a voice.
my feeling is that what the town says, according to is what's in 2 paragraphs, is that a blade of grass is more important than my son's eye. Because that is the difference of what this is, right? That is the difference. Well,
No,
I mean,
no,
this is,
we're dealing with language that's on file, a conservation easement, that the language, in my opinion, I think in Matt's opinion, is sufficiently clear, you don't touch it. Not a shovel, not a post, not anything. So, I'm gonna hold my thoughts and I wanna hear what Fred has to say.
Your concept of moving the conservation easement seems too far to reach to me. I don't even try to figure it out. Seems like the only approach you've got is working with Jack. Jack working with the town board. I don't feel like voting against the town board, no matter what my opinion is. We work for them.
We do, but just because the town board, they may say, oh no, go right ahead and do it. We are charged with a responsibility, a duty to follow the law. The law is these sets of criteria, and we have an attorney's opinion. So we have a lot of information, a lot of compelling information in front of us not to grant this variance, based largely in part about the language contained in that easement.
so what would you suggest I do as far as changing the language of the easement?
Get a lawyer, move the easement, change it, modify the easement language, but this board is powerless, does not have the authority to change the language of that easement. Donna, do you have any questions, concerns?
My question I have is it acts like you're saying that only that 30 foot is usable for your yard, because you're saying once you come in 30 foot, it's down, it's up. So you're telling me the whole rest of that yard is non-usable?
Not all of it, most of it. As I said, when you open up the back deck, it's almost like for the area that you can run around or throw a ball, it opens up as almost like a channel and then widens out to the easement because of everything else that's in the way. I've asked Town and Conservation Board to come out and take a look at it.
I mean, there's a pool there, right?
There's no pool.
What's in the picture? There's a pool.
Is that just a light fence? Then I'm assuming in one of the pictures that was shown. It's got a big pink flamingo in it. So
Okay,
maybe
so it's
it's
got
still
a-
in the fence in that case.
I think
That-
that's an example of what the fence is to look like.
Yes, correct.
Oh, okay,
Got ya.
okay.
Sarah?
There's a pool in that one.
Sarah, questions?
I really don't have any questions. I think that there's been a lot said tonight, and I think that if you worked with the building department ahead of time, or even right now, they can help come up with a way to put a fence in your yard to keep your family.
We did.
I mean,
December 1st.
so I'm just saying, if you take your fence out of that easement, you still have a place for your child to play, your dog to run, and it still keeps them safe away from the fence that you're referring to as not being.
What I'm saying is it doesn't, no one's come out to look at it. It doesn't create a place for my child to play and my dog to run. That's what I've been saying. No one's come out to look at it, and I've asked. And the order of the remedy here, and this is where I do feel like I've been targeted in a way because of how it's written. And the way it's written, it was issued on May 29th. And it says, observed on the date of Building Inspector Tom Strone's inspection of May 11th, that a split rail fence was installed in the rear of the yard at 7740 Pine Tree Drive. A review of the file shows an application was received on December 1st, 2020. However, a permit was not issued as the fence is indicated to be installed in an easement. Emails were sent to the homeowner with no record of receipt or reply. That is false. There is a consistent back and forth since that email between me and Al, for one. So to say that there wasn't a reply is a lie. On top of that, I came to the office of the Building and Planning Department to ask the picture that Tom Strome provided for his assessment on May 11th when I wasn't home, conveniently, always home. And he provided a picture showing a fence attaching from my house to my shed, which if you go through the Building and Planning Department's files showing a building permit for my shed, you would know that that is not in the easement. Yet, on this order of remedy, it cites 211-41.f, fences shall not be installed in violation of restrictions, including easements. Nothing about this picture gives any reason to issue me an order to remedy. And on top of that, I did email Kim asking for Tom Stone's reasoning as to why I received this order of remedy without any proof. And I said I would encourage you to ask Tom Stone directly on what he said. And the response that I received, I said, I have one question regarding the photo, and feel free to direct this to Tom Stone. Where does that suggest that my fence is in an easement? The picture depicts a fence which appears to connect to my shed, which according to the building permit and site inspection by the Planning and Building Department is well inside of an easement. I received a response on July 15th. Your fence application from November 30th, 2020 shows your proposed fence in the conservation easement, and you weren't issued the permit because the code officer told you a fence was not allowed in the conservation easement. In June, when you came to the office to discuss your order to remedy, which was subsequent to this date, you said your fence was in the easement. One, I didn't say it was in the easement, but if I had, you would have had to go back in time with that information to issue me this order to remedy, because in June, the benefit of the doubt I'm giving you is saying, yes, my fence is in the easement. I would have made that statement in June or July when I got this email back. How do you get that information in June and use it to issue an order of remedy in May?
Mr. Corman,
Hold on, Matt, let me clear this up. Are you denying that there is a fence in the easement as 8:45?
I am saying that
Is there a fence in that conservation easement today?
this order of remedy
Please answer my question.
is false proof. I'm not answering the question until a site inspection's done.
You're not going to cooperate, because I think you made the admission earlier that the fence is currently in the easement.
I'll say what I want to say for about the easement being there, but no one's come to look at it, because no one wants to help.
Okay, so you're not confirming or denying that there is a fence in that easement?
Right.
It was today, yesterday, a month ago, 6 months ago? You don't want to answer the question.
I want help.
All right, so doing the right thing doesn't mean answering a simple question, correct?
You're leading me.
If he doesn't want to answer it now, he answered it very clearly earlier today. I have plenty to believe the fence is in the easement based on what the applicants talked about. And I feel like he's trying to pull a fast one on us here, and I'm not very appreciative of the approach he's taking right now.
So, is there anything else, Mr. Corman, that you want to add? I don't think we want to hear repetitive things.
The very last thing.
Let us know.
No, it's a very, very sad day when you can't have an opportunity to get relief on something, but you spend the time and the effort putting things together, trying to do the right thing for your family, and you're a good citizen in the town, and you obey the law. That's just...
I wasn't looking at the clock, but I think your presentation has been about 45 minutes. So I think this board has given you a fair opportunity to make your presentation for your application for the variance.
for a predetermined outcome.
Actually, no, it's not predetermined.
You said it was.
Who said it was predetermined?
You said when you claim that there's due process, it's to give me an opportunity to speak, but the language in that says that no variance could be offered. However, I'm here to request an area variance, thus the patronizing event that I am outlining.
It's
But,
your opinion that you're being patronized. There are recourses. If you don't like this board's opinion, you certainly may do that.
okay, all right, thank you, yep.
All right, if you want to leave, that's your prerogative.
Is there anything else I should stay for? I mean, if there's some help I could get, I would stay. I would stay as long as it took to
Just because you
get help.
make a request for variance doesn't automatically mean you get it.
True, agreed.
Okay.
However, I didn't get any sort of positive feedback, and it felt expressed that I had malicious intent here, or I had ulterior motives, or that I was going to do whatever I was going to do anyway, and that is not true with the timeline of events.
It seems like you're not getting the answers that you want. That's my opinion. So what the next stage is that the board is going to go through the criteria. You heard it with the previous applicant. We go through the criteria, we fill in the facts as we know them, and then the board, if they choose to, will make a motion, and if it's seconded, then we'll rule either to grant or deny the variance. That's how this works. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm going to run through the criteria. First being, an undesirable change would be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties created by granting of the area variance. The primary reason is the language in paragraph 4 and paragraph 5 of the easement that's on file at the clerk's office states, as the record has indicated, that there all lands within the deed restrictive areas as shown on the filed subdivision map shall remain in their natural condition and undisturbed with the exception of removing or altering features. Would anyone like to add anything else to the first criteria? Second, the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. It appears from the maps and aerials that the applicant has provided that there are other places that a fence could go in to accomplish what he would like to accomplish without being in the conservation easement. Would anyone like to add anything else to the second criteria? Third, the requested area variance is substantial. Placing a structure within an easement that clearly indicates that the easement shall not be disturbed and shall remain in its natural condition is substantial. Anyone like to add anything to the third criteria? Fourth, the proposed area variance will not have, it will have an adverse impact on the physical and environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. Primarily, the language of the easement clearly indicates that that area shall not be disturbed and shall remain in its natural condition. Fifth, the alleged difficulty is self-created. The condition is relevant to the decision of the board, but should not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. Would anyone like to add anything else to the criteria?
Is my audio back?
I don't know.
Is my audio
I'd
back?
entertain a motion for denial.
A motion to deny.
Sarah? Second?
Second.
Thank you, Donna. All in favor of denial of the requested variance, say aye.
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 Opposed? Pat gave a thumbs up. Thank you for your time. Reese?
You guys need a break first?
No,
No.
I appreciate your patience. What I will tell you, though, just right off the bat, is this has to be referred to the county planning board.
I know.
So we got to get you back here.
That's fine.
This one next week.
August 16th, or 18th, she already told me.
Yeah. So
Kimberly Reese is not my daughter. I do have a daughter, Kimberly Reese. We're not related. There is no nepotism here.
That's what I asked her the first time I met her.
Right. I'll explain my face. I got hit with this 2x4. That's why I wore shorts, so the girls wouldn't have to look at this. So,
Okay, very good. So I appreciate your patience. So we're gonna probably revisit this again.
that's fine.
So you can keep it brief if you want, you can go through it, but I understand what you want is a two-car garage.
Correct.
You currently have a one-car garage.
Nope, and that's why I want to bring that up. So I got the survey map.
Yep.
Do you guys have it? I think I left it with you, didn't I, Kim?
I think so.
The old survey map, not the new one.
Where you drew on it, or?
No, the one I drew on is the new one.
This one,
One is the 1973,
dated
which shows...
71?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Got
We
it.
have that.
So that showed the garage then, but before I bought the property, they had torn that down.
Okay.
So I got it, just, basically it was a bunch of trees and stuff. Now, I'm not sure if she's given you any of the pictures that I had.
We have some aerial pictures, and then.
These?
Yeah. That's what I want to build.
Okay.
And-
Two-car garage, right?
Yep.
And there's a,
The picture of showing the house?
Yep.
Okay, so that was built in 1835. The front of it, they enclosed what's going to be an open porch. It used to be, all the stuff is still there.
so there's no garage.
Absolutely correct. And I don't know if you've got the one that shows the car. This one's in color, which shows.
That little shed that's down there, that was a little shed back there behind the car.
Yep.
And
I see it.
is that still there?
No, I moved that, so, the 13 pine to cedar trees that we
Tore down, they were infested with ants and hollow, and,
We've moved the shed. Okay.
yeah, the shed's no longer there. So,
You want a garage?
exactly.
Two-car garage.
Right, because most people don't want a one-car garage. And
Give us a thumbnail, if you will, sketch of why the garage can't be attached to the house.
I still would need a variance. If I bring that forward and attach it to the house, I would be less than 15 feet.
Okay.
I mean, I haven't moved back where the existing garage was, because that keeps the character of the old.
Sometimes we have to ask questions, even though it's kind of an assumption. but
Okay.
I'd like to hear you say it.
You ask me all the questions you want, and I'll try and answer them. So, and actually, I'm going to give you one more picture, which shows you what I'm hoping to do.
And for that note, if you have more documents, more papers.
Well, some of 'em-
For the next time around,
Yeah.
just because it's today, you can submit more documents.
This guy took on the house on Fire Road, built in 1820, has a garage there, mine don't have any garage, it's got the same looking porch. I just sold last year.
Okay.
This is where the garage is gonna go, right now, it's a sack of plywood, but there's this berm here, which is right up against it.
All right, can you, if you could, is that ours to keep?
Yep.
Okay, so Kim, because I know Matt can't see it.
Right.
We have two photographs, Matt, Kim's gonna make copies, and then for the next meeting, we'll have them.
Right.
Okay? He nodded his head.
And what the neighbor had done, his name's Josh Knapp, he's owned the property on the, so it'd be on the south side of where the garage is, the only person that's being affected. And he's built that berm, which sort of shows it's probably 10 or 15 feet tall. So, and he's a neighbor, he's hanging out with my kid right now, but
So
he has no problem with me putting that.
Still can't hear me,
in
huh?
writing that says.
No, but he was gonna, I don't know if Kim got any of the other stuff from Jane or from George.
We got Jane.
Okay, yeah. we got
Okay,
a-
and Babette, I've been working with Babette Hubert on trying to restore the house back to the
Bridge
1835.
Baker's on the other side.
Right, what about Mr. Knapp?
Well, he was gone, but I guess he hasn't. He's the landscape guy, but I'll talk to him tomorrow.
If you can.
Yep, yep.
Before the next meeting, if you have something in writing, especially
Yep.
because it's gonna be close to his property.
Exactly.
that'd be
And
helpful.
he gave it to me verbally, because he's always over there with my son.
I think you heard what I said about.
Yes, sir, I heard it plain and clear. He will have it. It won't be hearsay,
Anything else you want to add?
not unless you got questions.
All right. Sarah, any questions for Mr. Reese?
I don't right now.
Donna?
No,
Good?
No.
Fred?
I don't have any questions.
Right.
I'll wait till next time.
Okay, can you wait till next time?
Let these people go home.
Okay. No, we're all gonna wait till next time. I think I appreciate your application. I think we have a good start.
Okay,
We're gonna wait to hear from the county planning board,
okay,
and then we'll look at their comments, and then we'll see you back on the 16th. We're probably gonna ask maybe a few more questions.
that's fine.
And then we'll see what we can do.
Okay.
Put the poor guy up on the agenda.
Don't put me after that guy again.
put him first.
Thank you.
Very good. You have a good night.
You too, right now.
I think you passed it down to us. I wasn't sure if it was something that, okay.
Okay. Anyone have anything else for the board? Ed, you're good?
I'm totally confused about the calendars.
Yeah, I have to, next time I'll bring them in.
And I'm not too clear about the training either.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything about the training
Haven't
again.
gotten it yet.
Okay.
Oh, the war training?
Did you take?
The link.
Okay. I think then, Al, do you have anything for us?
No, I do not.
All right, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn our
Thank you,
meeting.
Donna. Second.
I can't second it quick enough.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Everyone have a good evening. Thanks so much. Thanks for joining us, Matt.